Hey guys, welcome back to Spy Plays. Today we have the long-awaited Liberator, Urza's Battlethopter deck tech. We have two guests on that have top 16 and won a tournament with this deck, so you know it's the real deal. Liberator is a special deck with a ton of hidden tricks. We are going to be talking about the playstyle, combos, what hands you should keep, and how to be successful with it in the tournament. As always, thank you for watching and hope you enjoy. Today we got a really cool deck tech for you. This is going to be on Liberator, Urza's Battlethopter. This deck recently won a Win a Duel tournament by Beamtown Bullies. This was a tournament on April 22nd up in North Tonawah, New York. And yeah, it won a dual land. I believe it was a tropical island. I have the three brewers of the deck here, Derek, Colin, and John. How you guys doing?
Pretty good.
I'm doing wonderful, Jesse. I'm doing great.
So yeah, we'll get off and start into this deck. I know John and Colin were brewing this one for a while, and then Derek, did you pick up the deck, or did you have your own brew before? Or?
I originally got on Colorless playing Emrakul, and unfortunately it was kind of like a glorious slicer, and then someone showed me that the Liberator won top 16, and I swapped to it and made my own changes.
Oh, okay. So you saw Colin's list, the one that he top 16 on. Where was that, Colin?
That was at the Fishbowl downstairs.
Fishbowl. That's right.
Fishbowl.
Okay, cool. And then you saw them, picked it up. That's cool. That's awesome. And then you joined one of the Discords we're in, and I remember we're playing in there with us, which was super cool. And I get to see different. It's nice to have more people working, especially on like a smaller deck.
Yeah.
You get a lot of cool new ideas, but. We're gonna get into like the main play styles of this deck. What even is this deck? Because obviously, like looking at it, it just looks extremely weird for most people that play CEDH. Like is this a CEDH deck? It is. It's a pretty good one actually. But
On your definition, it works.
It works. It definitely
It
works.
plays.
It is a lot better than people give it credit for. Is it the best? Is it the new meta?
Right. The
Thing
people are
known
calling
to
it.
man. No,
Right.
It's so much fun.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, it is absolutely fun and has great attack
There
angles.
was a couple people that we'll look over here with moderately anonymous Ken Bauman going over hyping this deck up, which is really cool. But yeah, we're gonna talk about first the play style of the deck, how the deck plays, and I'll shoot it over to John and Colin. What are like the main play patterns that happen with this deck?
Well, can I start, Colin?
Yeah, please.
I would say with the way that like I play this deck and how I see it, it's definitely like this combo control shell where you have a lot of these stacked pieces that you're able to like put into play and impede your opponents pretty quickly with your ridiculous amount of colorless mana production. You're able to, get stuff like your Trinispheres and Tangle Wire and, Sphere Resistance, etc. into play and really just like kind of make life difficult for your opponent. All the meanwhile also like getting your mana engines set up. Mana engines, but that's not the right word. Just getting your mana set up so that way you can play like more bomb cards that allow you to like snowball into a combo win once you've assembled like a couple cards. And so with Liberator, this deck winds up like taking advantage of the multiplayer dynamic pretty well and just like waiting for the right moment to do things, and you're able to save your interaction until it's needed. You have lots of stuff that is really heinous to like be able to play at instant speed, like your Pithing Needle effects, like your Sphere effects that maybe aren't going to resolve on a turn, but you need to like stop the combo player, the ad nauseum player, so you flash in a Damping Sphere. And there's like a number of these, and so you wind up like having this ability to kind of pivot based on what the pod needs, and choose like, okay, am I going to take this turn of stacks out? Am I going to just like develop my board more, play the Staff of Domination, whatever, and start get like my combo rolling? And it's really a really unique, fun dynamic that allows you to take advantage of the 4-player experience.
Yeah, no, I've definitely seen it going off, and it's it's hard to play around and all that stuff. I guess how do the first like few turns look? I guess I can have Colin talk about that.
So usually when I'm trying to jam as much mana and maybe 1 or 2 stacks pieces or something that I can leverage a lot of politics onto
Right.
very early on, it very much hinges, my opinion, on getting Libby out fairly quickly,
Right.
which with the amount of 0-drop rocks and what is effectively a jeweled lotus on, or I'm sorry, a black lotus on a land of Mishra's Workshop,
Mishra's
you're able to
Workshop's
get that
pretty
out
good, yeah.
absolutely so quickly, which is it's just phenomenal.
Right.
And smaller pieces like Lantern of Insight or Pyxis of Pandemonium, I think are really good, especially for the early game tutors, because now it just turns them off or they have to play into them. And that's something that I've found has been very beneficial in helping slow down the game, let people reassess, and let you talk up the politics of, oh, this card needs to stay, we're keeping everybody in check, we have a nice, even, slow game, a good, wholesome magic like Richard Garfield intended. You know, that is, I think, what the moniker behind Hall Monitor was supposed to be, is just like, everyone is very slow and even, and you just keep building. Me. Except John, who just cracks out these turn 2 wins. I'm like, what are you doing? How did you do this? What is this?
We'll get into those later, but yeah, I've definitely seen it. You definitely want to set up Libby. This deck is if you guys know or are familiar with the Yeva, which is a mono green deck, has sort of the same text where green spells have flash. Libby says colorless spells have flash, and so you're essentially playing and abusing this multiplayer format that we're in, and this allows you to just do some really funny stuff and be able to take advantage of timing on any situation as long as Liberator is out. And it is really good at just like getting underneath things and like stealing things underneath people or throwing in stacks underneath people or even winning on top of people.
Pretty much.
Pretty cool.
And so it's funny because Liberator is so perfect for a colorless deck like this, because what it does is it just completely maximizes on the surprise factor. Like the deck is already like when you're playing colorless deck, people already like kind of don't know what you're doing.
Exactly.
But when you're also able to flash in stuff at instant speed when people aren't prepared for it, or it just like it totally throws a wrench in what people think you're capable of. Being able to, there's just like a plethora of stuff where you think, okay, well, this deck really needs to play to the board. You know what I mean? Like it in theory shouldn't be like super sneaky, but it winds up, because of its commander being able to be super sneaky and doing exactly what you want to do when you're playing a deck that maybe isn't as powerful as the other decks in the format.
Right. And I will say another thing that we didn't touch on is the utility in the lands is super massive. There's really cool utility in here. We can go through this like all day, but there's so many little things in here, especially with the lands. We'll give you guys the list and everything you can look over that just really helps push this deck forward. Even though it doesn't seem like it gets so much advantage, it is able to leverage things that most cEDH decks can't. Right, yeah. Mishra's Workshop being like an insane card. If you can get out with early, you just are able to abuse the keys, abuse all the rocks. Unwinding Clock is an insanely good engine in this deck. So there's just a lot of little stuff. But we're going to start getting into the combos, the things that actually win the game in this deck. And I can have John. What are would you say the main combos in this deck? I know there's a lot.
So I would say, are we talking pre or post ring?
We'll throw in the ring later.
Okay, I'll get to that.
We can do the basic ones right now, and then we'll throw in the ring after.
So the most easily to assemble combos wind up, most of them wind up starting with Basalt Monolith, and there's like a couple cards that just like 2-card make infinite mana off of it, and because your deck is so dense in mana dumps, you can usually find something to do with that infinite mana. So you have Basalt with your Rings of Bright Hearth. You have Basalt with your Forsaken Monument, which is pretty good. And then you have stuff to wind up like drawing your deck by playing things like Mystic Forge and Ugin and Sensei's Divining Top. or playing another cost reducer, and I believe we're currently playing 2. You also have infinite mana with the creature whose name is going over my head right now. Metalworker, yes. So you have infinite mana combos with Metalworker, which are pretty sick. And most of your wins, once you are on your deck or search for anything with infinite mana, go through either Walking Ballista or with tapping and untapping Pixis of Pandemonium to exile everyone's decks.
Right. The Pixis lock. And so that's the thing we were talking about earlier.
Yes.
That hits top deck tutors. That's a pretty cool little tech. Funny thing with that is if you crack it, let me see. If you crack it, it puts all the permanents right onto the battlefield. Yeah. You're playing what 90 permanents? Yeah, your whole deck is permanents, and most CEDH decks are playing like 30 permanents. I mean, if you take out the lands, like that's just most decks are playing the amount of permanents you are, which is fun.
And something that I think is really important to acknowledge here is that most of the combo pieces in this deck have a function on their own. Basalt Monolith is good at just like making mana. Forsaken Monument also just like makes a ton of mana. Your Metalworker makes a ton of mana. And you have cards like Rings of Brighthearth, which you would think like wouldn't actually be that good, but it can wind up being like a pretty good value engine when half of your deck has activated abilities that you can copy. You can do some pretty cool stuff, and there's even some like 4-card, 3-card weird combos that you wind up being able to do that just kind of like use all of these like value centric cards. And there's also a lot of these like combos in the deck that just revolve around playing like these good value engine cards that kind of just like spiral way out of control. Like if I have an unwinding clock and if I have a planar bridge and I like activate into this unwinding clock, all of a sudden I can just go and activate that every turn.
And keep activating every turn. That's
in one rotation.
Disgusting.
Yeah, and you win like in a rotation. And there's like a number of these pieces in the deck that all just kind of like spiral out of control once you've like gotten them into play. Like also the and now I'll talk about the One Ring, right? Clock of Omens is a very good mana rock, it's a very good like mana enabler by tapping all of your etc artifacts, all of your stuff that just is kind of existing, and then using it to untap your different vaults and whatnot and make a shit ton of mana. You can also just like if you have like the One Ring out, you can tap that and essentially like assemble your own ad nauseum, and tapping all of your mana rocks all of your random artifacts to untap the One Ring, draw 4, play 2 artifacts, untap it, draw 5. And,
so the One Ring, for those not aware, is from the new Lord of the Rings set. Not out yet, but it'll be coming out soon. And this is just a huge boom to this deck. This is going to be an insane.
It's another 1-card combo for the
value engine. And it's a 1-card combo with it, because there's so many artifact synergies. You're just able to basically draw your deck. It's like it's like
so many ways to untap it that eventually you just get there, whether it's through your Voltaic keys and Manifold Key, your Unwinding Clock, or your other clock, the Clock of Omens.
We're gonna go into the one combo that Derek actually figured out that includes Mere Battlesphere. So Derek, if you want to talk about that combo a little bit, you can.
Yeah, I noticed that a lot of the times that we just naturally develop our board and naturally put a lot of artifacts, and I started trying to figure out what are the lines when you have Kadalthal Forge Master that just gets you the win. And I did the math, and it's about 9 artifacts. And then I thought about it, and I saw a list like months ago, and it was kind of like a casual list, and it had Mere Battlesphere in there, and I couldn't figure it out. But then I tried it, and then in the middle of trying to activate this line, I was low on artifacts, but then I clued into the Mere Battlesphere, and I was like, wait a minute, this thing's going to put 5 artifacts. I'm going to put a Sculpting Steel. I'm going to copy it. It's going to put another 5 artifacts.
Right.
So instead of 9, all I need is 6. So 6 and a Kadalthal Forge Master unchecked with no interaction wins the game.
And that winds up working because you get Clock of Omens first to untap the thing, right?
Yes, you go for
Yeah,
Clock of Omens
Clock of
first, then
Omens.
to Battlesphere, then into Sculpting Steel, then into Basalt, to Forsaken, into
Yeah, and
Staff.
you have infinite mana staff. You just draw your deck.
Yep.
So yeah, the line there is the cold. There's this is going into one of those combos, but a lot of these combos kind of end in the same way, so it'll be good. So you get Kuldotha, you sack it, grab what is it? Clock.
Omens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Untap it, sack it, grab Battlesphere, untap it because you have more artifacts now.
Grab
Then you go
Sculpting Steel.
grab the Sculpting Steel to copy it. It's kind of like a Razaketh line. Then you do it again, get rid of it. Now you get 2 more
Yeah.
artifacts you can grab, which is
Kind
the
of like
Basalt.
a Razaketh line.
Yeah, just
Only
colorless.
better.
Yeah, only better because it's colorless, minus the colors. So you know.
And it's so
I
great
am better.
because
I am
everything's
better.
at flash, right? So you can
And it's instant
have
speed,
Forge
yeah.
Master in your hand, and you
Right.
can have a few artifacts in your hand. So you could be representing like 3 or 4 artifacts and just like 7 mana. And you're like, all right, Forge Master, 2 artifacts on tap, win.
There it
Right,
is.
right. And these are the weird little combos and stuff that just naturally you kind of fall into sometimes, which is cool. You just have to see them. We'll get into now, so that's the combo part that is good to explain. I do want to talk about these like little inclusions here that are good, stacks pieces or just disruption pieces. So we'll start off with like thought knots here. What is the reason behind thought knot?
Would you like a Thought Seize to protect your
Yeah.
win or stop a
Like
win?
colorless
Right.
Thoughtseize with a body that I can equip a sword to.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
so-
Would you like
Oh,
a
you're
beefy
casting
body and
Grand
then
Abolisher? What if I thought seized you in response to your Grand Abolisher?
Right, yeah. There's just so much funny things that could happen.
or
with this.
the niche play of someone shooting Thought Knot to force the Thoracle player to draw a card? That I think is a very niche but important.
Right. All these cards have such little niche things. Soulless Jailer is a great just stacks
Yeah.
piece.
Third cage, absolutely. For how
Third
much
cage is
Breach is
really
going
good.
crazy, it's necessary.
Yeah, we were running a suite of stacks pieces that
Oh yeah.
a lot of you will recognize just because they're very good. Like a Pithy Needle, most people would recognize. Pixissy, that's the one we kind of had to go into. Let's talk a little bit more about the Portcullis. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Portcullis is
Portcullis.
the best
Oh.
card
So
I've
good.
ever
This
I've
is
ever
a-
played in this deck.
That is so funny. I remember
It gets
when
touch
Colin
calls
played it
every
against me.
time.
Not only does it's flash, so it responds by killing a creature basically, but then it just locks the board down, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna deal with it? Because I'm just gonna win if you don't deal with it.
Right,
Wow.
right. I love these
Yeah.
little weird pieces that just stop. So basically, it stops creatures from entering, and so it stops you from getting overrun by those creature decks. Getting through
Something-
your weird stacks.
Yeah.
Get me everyone
Something
know
that I think is also very important about the like stacks dynamic of this deck and
Uh-huh.
like how many of these that you have is that you're not like a normal stacks deck where if a normal stacks deck gets its piece bounced, they just like lose that turn.
That is very important.
You have the ability to flash them all back in, or if you're playing a stacks piece that slows yourself down, often people just to like slow other people down for a turn cycle, but you realize like you need to turn off some of your combos so you don't just die. People eventually like can get rid of it, and then you wind up being able to take advantage of that. So it has like this weird dynamic where people are in a very difficult position because they know like a lot of the removal in cEDH just like isn't going to permanently deal with it. So if there's something in play, it gets bounced, you can just play that again.
right.
Or you can not play it and all of a sudden, oh, my Grafdigger's Cage is gone. I will now play my Planar Bridge or Mystic Forge, right? And storm
Right.
off with Mystic Forge after they've bounced this 8-piece for me.
That
Don't
is a
have
very
enough
neat
artifacts in
thing.
your hand for Metalworker, they bounce it up.
Yeah, you can always pivot your plan because you are playing at a speed that most decks aren't available to play at. They're not able to play at that. Flash speed.
And Liberator is notably the cheapest version of this effect,
is.
and a deck that also has like a huge ability to be casting this on turn one and pivot to doing whatever else and adapting its game plan.
You are able to get the main engine of the deck from the command
Out the
zone
range.
out
Yeah.
almost turn one every time. Like
Jewel
if you
Lotus,
wanna
cast it
play.
by itself. Misha's Workshop, cast
Misha's
it by
Land Crypt.
itself.
Any
Yeah.
Workshop's
crypt,
cheap.
land,
Vault.
anything. Yeah,
Yeah.
any of these rocks, and you're playing all the keys and stuff to untap these vaults, the monoliths. So definitely gets through pretty well. Is there any? Let's see. He's got the Unlicensed Hearse, more graveyard hate. You know, you got ETB hate. Dockside is kind of this deck used to be called the Dockside Fodder. I think Colin's version, is it still called Dockside Fodder?
Yeah, it's still Dockside Fodder.
Yeah, so
Still Dockside Fodder.
There's obviously things to.
Hey, we don't talk about that.
So speaking of that,
I always have card in hand.
Speaking of that, let's get into what are some weaknesses of the deck, and like things that if people are playing against it, like how are they gonna, mulligan accordingly to try to stop the deck, or at least like, I don't know, help deal with some of the issues.
I think one of the biggest things. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Derek.
One of the biggest strengths of the deck is not having people not having knowledge of what's going on. So us talking about this now is going to turn down the win rate of the deck, unfortunately. But
yeah,
in
full
transparency
right now,
yeah.
cutting it now, guys.
Cut that.
We need the win rate to say hi.
Thank God.
No, we're almost completely shut off by Karn, Null Rod, and
Right.
Stony Silence. Like we almost have no ways to deal with it. We're just kind of like you come off as wounded prey at that point until it's dealt with. Null Collector is a little iffy. You can kind of deal with Collector, but
Right, you got Spatial Contortion here, All is Dust, Warping Well doesn't work, but there's some kill spells. Specifically one that I really like. This is the absolute goat land of the deck. Underdark Rift. You roll a d10 and you can tuck a creature, artifact, or planeswalker. So that gets rid of Karn too, so screw you, Karn.
It's everything but Stone Silence.
Yeah, it's everything but Stony Silence. But most people don't play that thankfully right now, so yeah.
Yeah, we got ways to deal with that.
I will say, piggybacking off of what Derek said, as John has popularized, a lot of times you just got to get good at playing very dead and just like pick up a card like your phone. Like you're no longer in the game, and you just gotta kind of subdue expectations, because clearly over half the deck is just turned off by rot effects.
Right.
And then someone inevitably shoots it because everybody's loving Dockside or just having value rocks. Why not?
Right.
And then off you go.
Flash speed.
You'll
win a flash speed.
That's another thing that's pretty underrated about this. But one, people will remove these null rot effects eventually.
Yeah.
Like I have never seen a collector roof stay throughout the whole game, or a null rod stay without getting bounced, stay throughout a whole game. In like the thousands of games that I played of cEDH, I always see one of those effects getting bounced or killed or something. Yeah, that's not even an exaggeration, correct. And once it gets bounced or killed, most of the time it's like, it's bounced. I wish, if I can get to my next turn, I can do this thing. Well, if Liberator is out, you don't have to get to your next turn. It is your turn. Everyone's turn is your turn.
Exactly.
So that is the key. When these things get removed, you can always capitalize on that. Which is nice. And then
and then Dockside obviously is it's definitely an issue for the deck, right? There's a lot of the times where you think you have people's mana production locked down, and if you're trying to do everything by yourself, then people will just kind of work together and get to the point where, okay, you have that God Pharaoh statue in play, which is a pain, and maybe I can't cast everything, but I'm going to cast a Dockside and make it 13 treasures, and you're just like, well, shit. Yeah, but a lot of the time, you do a very good job when playing this deck of working together with other people.
Yeah,
everyone knows, and everyone acknowledges the fact that you aren't going to be capable of dealing with everything. In fact, most people think you're capable of dealing with nothing.
They're usually, what the hell's going on?
Yeah,
why are you here?
So usually you can use people to deal with some of the problems, and then you just do your part and deal with a couple. You deal with one player from winning. You play something that makes it harder, and then together working with people, you can figure out how to stay alive and stay in the game. Which is something that I think is that this deck is incredibly strong at doing. People don't consider it during mulligans and will not rely on you to stop anyone. So they will keep their own things to stop people. and when it's not enough, you are often able to just sneak in your one piece, do your part, and get there. And I think it's a lesson that a fair amount of decks can learn from, is just learning how to do their part to stop people from winning, but not doing everything.
Not overextend.
Because you can't do everything with most decks, right? You can't stop everyone all the time.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing that you said there. Actually, is when you're in a cEDH game, you're sitting across from these different decks. You kind of have an idea or expect what certain decks are gonna do, and if you see a Liberator in a pod, you're probably gonna expect some weird stuff to come out, some stack speed, even if you don't know what it is. But you're at least going to be kind of mulling and accordingly to the rest of the table as well. And so it as long as everyone's going to be playing their part, you're not going to, the weight of the world is not on Liberator most of the time.
Yeah.
It is usually on a lot of other players interacting with other things, but you're also interacting. they just don't know what's happening, which is the Brewer's advantage, which is one of the reasons the deck was recently successful at both the Fishbowl and the Beamtown, or was it Bufftown Bullies event that just happened. And so that Brewer's advantage is a real thing, and I think it is the strongest in cEDH. So I think that is a very good thing to have on your side, as if you're going to be playing an off-meta deck.
Yeah, the amount of times I was asked, what does that card do? Was
I can imagine.
Oh yeah, continue.
Make sure to get all Japanese foils too if you build this deck. So that no one has any idea what's going on. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. I hate when people do that. We're gonna cut right into the last part of the video, which is gonna be mainly on the tournament that Derek won with Liberator. So yeah, this deck not only it's not just a meme, it actually wins tournaments apparently. And so how was that event for you, Derek? And you can kind of just start off with just the beginning, going into it. What were your thoughts?
So yeah, it was kind of a last minute thing. I wasn't sure if I was going to go to the event, but I figured I'd go and get some really good testing. How often do you get people who are actually going to stay in the game when you play a turn 1 Trinisaur? Right? They have to stay. They're paying to stay.
Yeah.
You always get good testing. You always get good testing there. But it was a really good tournament. We got there early. It was a nice little store. The first match started out fairly well. Unfortunately, the whole tournament's fairly blurry, but I can give you the gist of each match.
That's fine. Yeah, just quick.
The first match was, we kind of got our board state out, and I got to the point where I was probably going to go off. I had an unchecked Forge Master, but I didn't have enough artifacts to go off, and I played one of my pieces, and I got offered that I'm going to counter that piece unless you tell me you're not going to go off this turn or kill anyone this turn. And I said, and I replied back with fine, I will not kill anyone until you untap your lands. I will not attempt to kill anyone until you tap your lands. And they made that okay. So that was their mistake, because I immediately created infinite mana and gained infinite life. And then I cast Emacruel and
nice.
Gonna take their next turn. Cool. So I'm like, this counts, right? Because I'm untapping your lands, right? So
yeah, no,
that was game 1. So they didn't.
That's cool.
They didn't anticipate. The second game
Did you
included. I did win that game. I did win that game.
I'd hope so.
Yeah. The second game was pretty awesome. One of the persons tried to go off with a Thassa's Oracle super fast, and I Torpor Orbed at the very end, and
nice.
they just scooped it up. So it was 3 players. The 3 players, they took their time, and we unfortunately went to time. There was a portcullis on the field scooping everyone's creatures, and I had a big Hearst, so I was beating them with the big Hearst, but they just kept having creatures.
So big.
Yeah, right. So they kept blocking, and I figured if I had another 5 minutes of just beats, I would have won. But unfortunately, went to time from
that's
taking it. So that was the draw.
And then so after that, was it the cut to the top 4? I'm guessing, or is it cut to top 6?
So that was the first 2 rounds of Swiss. We had 4 rounds of Swiss, cut to top 6. So the third round, yeah, right. The third round was pretty straightforward. The Zur player went a turn 1 on his rotation. He played 5 mana in the first turn, and then did an Abnaz that no one dealt with, and then just won on turn 2. And I was just like, well, That was fast. I got to take a break, eat some pizza.
That's good.
So
It's
that
good to
was-
get a nice little break, even if you lose. Sometimes if you already got those 2 wins in the bag, it's definitely nice to relax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And the 4th match, was it 3? I guess it was 3 cut to top.
oh, was it 3 cut to top 16? That kind of makes sense actually. 3 cut to top. Maybe it was 4, but once you're
Uh,
in top 16,
If
If there was
the-
if there was a 4th match, it was blurry. It was too
Right,
blurry. The
right.
top 16 I remember quite clearly because
Okay.
I was fairly tired at this
Okay.
point. So at this point, I was like, "Hey guys, if you knock me out early, I get to drive home in the daylight." I was just making
That's
the
funny.
joke like, "Come on, guys, you got to kick me out." And
Right,
then
right.
I dropped down like a turn 3 Trinisphere, and everyone just
Ooh.
kind of like, "Oh."
Yeah,
Oh, really?
transfers are definitely a big piece of the
And so I'm coming off as wounded prey. Like I'm like half asleep. Like, is it my turn? Oh, okay. All right. I'll play the stack piece. Go. And they just kind of dealt with each other until they were all out of interaction. And then it came to my untap, and I was like, guys, they win? And they're like, yeah, I guess you win, because they thought they had me with the collector roof, but on my end step I had a spatial contortion, and then I went off.
Ah,
Beautiful.
nice. Yep.
So
one of
he-
those
he-
things you're able to deal with it.
He said his mistake was playing collector oof early instead of flashing it in with Court of Calling. And I was like, that
Mm.
could have done something else, but hindsight's 2020.
Right, right, exactly. And that's the
And
benefit
then-
of playing the deck. You can play at instant speed.
Mhm.
The finals was just nuts though, because I got
Okay.
cut a decent hand, and the hand had Crucible, a map, Unwinding Clock, Mana Crypt, a land, and something else.
Okay.
And I was
Sheesh.
like, all right, this is sick. I'm gonna start off with 3 mana. I'm
That
gonna
was the
cast my
finals
general.
pod, you said?
Yeah, this is the final things, right?
And
I'm
the
in
final
third place.
pod, the decks I just want to go over it quickly was
Yeah.
Thalia and the Get Rog Monster. The other one was is it one?
Riel.
Riel.
Yeah.
Riel.
And another is it.
then the other is it was the
Ecom and Zindersplit. or
Zinder
Okum.
Split and Ecom. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That and so this is a very interesting. I would say this is pretty cool. We got the new Thalia
Curious
card.
pod, yeah.
Yeah, and then
Yeah, they do.
2 Is It decks, which honestly I don't know what Is It players are doing,
I
but
think they're
they are
trying to-
always in top 16, just like
Yeah.
Yep.
all these EDH
Chilling.
top 16. Is It has been like killing it for a 2-color
Yeah.
combo. It's pretty cool, but yeah. Anyways, you can keep going on the final pod.
Yeah, no worries. I had a great hand starting out. I'm gonna start out with 3 mana. Well, it turns out that the first card I drew was a Mana Vault. My eyes open up, and I'm just like, "There's no
Holy.
way I'm gonna win this Trop Island." So I start out with 5 mana into an Unwinding Clock and a map.
Jesus.
Pass the turn,
That is beautiful.
untap with you, and like so at the end of the first rotation, I had my general, I had Crucible Worlds, I had a cracked map with an Inventor's Fair in my hand, and they the green
Get Rug.
Yeah, the Get Rog player.
Get
Sorry,
Rog,
the Get Rog
yeah.
player decided to put in Adranus Majesty, and unfortunately, that shut off the other 2 players. So he actually, the Get Rog player actually caused me to win, pretty much, because he shut off the
Right.
other 2 players.
yeah, and that happens. I mean, in my last few,
It's a part of the
tournaments,
game, yeah.
Yeah.
People will just they like have a stacks piece in hand. They're like, even though the one person is ahead and this is just going to put them far ahead, they just kind of see that piece and they just kind of throw it down because they think. Like,
Remember,
oh, it's good.
kids, stacks responsibly.
Stacks,
Yeah.
yes. Stacks
Brought to you by the
responsibly.
Liberator crew.
Correct.
Also,
Inventor's
yeah.
Fair, Crucible World.
Stacks is
Yeah.
only good if you're the one coming out on top of it.
Yeah.
That's
Gotta
the
break
key.
parity.
Asymmetrical. Break parity.
Sometimes you gotta just not cast it and let hell break loose and hope other people stop each other, and
Right.
then play it.
Yeah, and so people were going absolutely bonkers on Twitter and online, just talking
I
about
feel
this
that.
deck. New best tournament deck. So that must have been a sick feeling. You wanted me to show this image about Emrakul slapping someone with a chair, but
Yeah. Oh, because
Yeah, this is
Emrakul had some really cool abilities. And at some point
Right.
during some of the games, I've casted Emrakul, take their turn, run their general, and Emrakul choose to put their general in the command zone, and it just stays there for the rest of the game, and they're out.
that is so funny. And so you're
It's the-
going into the standings, 6 points here, but how many wins did you get, and then how many losses overall in the match?
So I think it was 4 rounds. Unfortunately, I don't remember the 4th round very nicely. So I'm pretty sure I went 1 win, 2 losses, 1 tie.
One
So I
win,
went
two
in with
losses, one
6
tie.
points.
Okay,
But
and
you
then
won
the
the
next two.
which was
Yeah, but then I won the next 2
for
after
the
that.
second,
So
Nice.
which is very good for your breakers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It is very important to the first game is very important to win. I noticed in cEDH. So make sure to
Yeah.
play tight on those first games because they do matter a lot, and to putting you against people that are going to have
It's
better
it's
records.
huge for your breakers to win
Yeah.
your first
Massive.
match. Yeah,
It is very, very
Massive.
big.
it's almost necessary. Like unless you like win out, winning your first match is so necessary to have good breakers. And then winning and then drawing, lets you do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't win your first match, you are sweating the entire tournament. You are doing math. You are scribbling down on that
Right.
piece of paper. Like, am I gonna get this in, or let's do the math?
It's the joke, but it's called O2 drop for a reason.
Yeah.
Like it is rough on those matches, but anyways, this has been an awesome just talking over the deck. Is there anything you guys want to go over before we finish this off? I think we covered a pretty good amount though.
Yeah.
Sure.
It was really good. A few little fun little tricks I remember doing is I remember killing a bad Thassa player by making them draw with Nico Koro in the middle of their
nice.
Thassa trigger.
Okay. Yeah, those are little like funny little tricks you can do.
I had
Yeah,
someone
Nico
give
Koro,
me
yeah.
spirits with Forbidden Orchard a bunch of
nice.
times. Then I I think it was Orchard, and then I played a Forsaken Monument. They all became 3/3s, and I beat up the table with it.
Wow, that is hilarious.
No one expects
All
it.
Wonderful.
we got another one we got to cut out so they don't know the hidden tech. Yeah.
You mean not the Avarice Totem turns
Yeah,
Bullet
Avery Rice,
Citadel?
Oh.
Totem, steal the Necro, feel my hand.
Oh,
Yep. Yeah.
And then
there's
when
some
it's
funny
out,
things.
good cards are good.
Splash,
Yeah, I'm gonna post the deck list down below. There's probably gonna be a ton of questions about this. There's a Discord, right? You guys have a Discord. That
There is a Discord. Yeah,
Okay,
it's
cool.
called
I'll be posting
Colors
that.
Are a Crutch.
It's called
I don't-
Colorless or Crush.
Colors are a crutch.
Colors are a crutch, which apparently they are.
Yeah.
I'm around,
Yeah.
and you're always able to ask questions.
Imagine the sensation you have when you win something and you get to tell your friends like, yeah, I just beat your deck, except I'm playing like a tenth
With-
of the card pool.
Colorless,
Right.
baby.
Yeah, you beat it. You beat them, and they could be playing all of these cards.
They can.
They could.
Like, you can play all
play
of them.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can play literally all of them.
You
Yeah.
can play any deck can play any of these cards, but
Yeah.
not the same way. that's the big thing. Liberator is definitely the engine of the deck, so that's cool. But yeah, thank you guys for hopping on, talking about the deck. It was awesome
My pleasure.
interviewing you, Derek, and just having John and Colin, who's been working. Colin's been working on this deck for.
Yes, Colin is.
He used to be Hope
is
of
the-
Gearper, and he
Oh, yeah.
bullied me with Hope for like a
Yep.
year or so. And
Aether
so-
Flux, what?
Yeah,
and then
shot
the
me.
Liberator came out, and we're like, wait a second.
This is so
Wait
much
a minute.
better.
This is
Yeah.
so much better.
We definitely got
Still
a
a
huge
meme,
boom.
but it is a better meme.
It is a better meme. But yeah, I'll post all the deck list down below, the Discord, so you guys can go in there, ask questions. And if you have any sort of questions, you can just hop in there. But yeah, thank you guys for hopping on, and hope you guys
Embrace
have a
the
good,
new master race. Colorless overlords are here.
watch out for Emrakul with the chair, and yeah, have a good day.
Oh, okay.